Hey everyone, in this video I'll be talking about doing the basing and working on the boulder for the Frost Giant from the game Blood Rage. Now, if you've watched the video where I paint up the entire giant, this stone has already been based with our Eshin Gray. Now, I'm going to take Lothern Blue, and this is going to be my base for everything that's underneath the snow and the ice. I have this really watered down. You can see how thin this color is, and you don't need to be too careful about what it is you're doing here. You just want to get a good layer in. And I do have 2 layers of this really watered down. Now I am creating a hard line with this. The idea is that the tops of the stone, that's what's covered in snow and ice. So underneath this outcropping that he's standing on, I'm not going to have the Lothern Blue because that's not where I'm going to have snow and ice. And now I'm going to start to add the Lothern Blue on the boulder up above his head. But you're seeing here, I'm putting the layer of the blue upside down. That's because what I want to make sure that I'm doing is this idea that he's picked the stone up and pulled it up over his head. I'm going through here and I'm adding highlights, just a bit of a dry brushing technique. And all this is Morrow White from P3. I got a pretty ratty brush here and I've got a dry brushing technique. I don't want to get this white deep down into all of the little recesses. I think that we get a really nice look of ice and snow, but especially this idea of ice when we have this blue underneath. I've gone through and I've done all of this dry brushing and a couple of different layers of it to really build that up. Now I'm going through and I'm adding this Lothern Blue onto the flat base itself. You can also see the top of the boulder here. I went through and I did some dry brushing with a Celestra Gray. That's going to give me a little bit of texture there to the top of that stone. Again, the top of the stone and the bottom of the outcropping are highlighted in Celestra Gray, and that's what's giving me this idea that that's what's not exposed to the elements, it's not covered in ice. I'm using the Lothern Blue to give a nice cool blue shade underneath all of the white, which is really going to give us this nice icy look. Ultimately, the whole flat part of this base is what it is that's going to get covered later. So I'm adding this thin layer in. I don't have to be worried about it going on and looking splotchy or anything like that. When it comes through in the layers, it's just going to look like more texture. I like this because it does give you a good look for your miniatures, and it's something that you can easily use in a speed painting competition or when you're working on an army of creatures that are in the snow or you don't have a ton of time. It'll still look good, it doesn't look rushed, and it's easy to do without taking up an entire day. Here I have my Formula P3 white, and I've gone ahead and I've done a layer of that on the basing, and I'm making sure that all of my layers are dry. So here I'm using my modeling glue and I'm putting some dollops on here using a toothpick, and I'm just spreading this around. It's on there pretty heavy. That's going to help build up some of my layers, but I do want to spread it around so they have a pretty consistent thin layer over the top of everything. I will suggest make sure you got a nice ventilated room or turn a fan on for this one, because you're using a lot of this craft glue, and so your fumes really might start to get to you, so make sure you're being safe. I use modeling glue like this a lot whenever I'm basing. It's really nice when you have fine sand or baking soda or even this flocking. It's going to give you some really nice textures. I like to set my piece here, and it's just in the lid. It makes things easier. This is a ultra fine snow, and I'm just dumping it in there. I don't have to be super careful. I move it around and I'm letting that snow flocking get all over the place. This sort of gets everywhere, but that's okay. Just plan ahead with your workspace. I give it a few seconds to really set, and then I try to tap off some of the excess. The longer you let this set, the more it is going to build up some of these layers and ridges. Now I'm going through and I'm adding some more glue. I'm getting this right onto the stone. It's the top side of this stone because that's what's been exposed to the snow and ice. Again, I use a toothpick to spread things around, and this is going to get down into all of those cracks. We'll lose some detail. That is going to go away, but it will retain it. There'll be some nice textures to everything, and this real fine snow flocking really lets you see what it is that's underneath. As these layers build up, it gives me more texture, it gives me more variations, it doesn't look too smooth, it doesn't look too perfect. And I'm going through and I'm just sprinkling in my snow. I don't have to worry about it getting everywhere because it's not going to stick to the parts of the mini that I don't want it on because I've made sure to let all of the paint dry before I get to this step. Here you can see where that snow flocking has been added to the underside of the boulder. Remember, we're going with this idea that the underside used to be the top of the boulder. And so he's picked that up and lifted it up over the top of his head. I also went through and added a little bit of glue to his biceps where the snow has fallen off and has rested on him. Now my last little bit here is I realize that I want to make sure that I get some of his jewelry painted up, and I'm just going through and I'm using a nice bright silver. This jewelry could be any color that you like, but I think that the silver and blue and white all look really nice together. And here is our frost giant from Blood Rage, completely ready to hurl boulders and terrorize the Viking forces. I want to say a huge thank you to everybody who follows us, who supports, and especially to those of you that share our videos. Let me know any comments down below. What do you think of snow? What are your ways of doing it? And have you used this sort of flocking technique in the past? Thanks to everybody. Don't forget that we put videos out every Tuesday and Thursday, but go ahead and hit that notification bell so that you can get a heads up anytime we have any bonus videos or anything like that. A big thanks to all of our patrons, and especially to Joan. If you want to support our channel, you can head over to our Patreon page and check out the different perks of being a patron. But until next time, this has been our little tutorial for some basing work, a nice way to figure out how to do some snow and ice for any of your miniatures that might need it. Until next time, I'm Ryan, and this is Roll for Initiative. Bye!